सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। We have seen till the 8th shlok, 8th mantra, page 214, 9th mantra. यतश्चोदेति सूर्यः अस्तं यत्र च गच्छति तं देवाः सर्वे अर्पिताः तदुनात्येति कश्चन एतद्वै तत्। It is not just the individual and the individuality which is supported by the very substratum. The entire totality as well is nothing but that which is born and that unto which everything goes to merge in, even the totality. And the representation of the totality here is taken as an example is the Surya. It is in our Siddhanta, the Sanatana Vaidika Hindu Dharma, where our understanding of the rishis has been quite objective and quite precise. We did not call this as Bhumandala. Bhumandala, that which is earth centric. We always have recognized it as Saurya Mandala, which is solar centric. Now, the earth centric also claim that the entire creation or entire earth is flat. And that when you travel around in the oceans, in the deep sea, at the end of the sea, it falls and enters into the netherworld, into the underworld. With children, I was watching this Pirates of the Caribbean. So there is one particular, there are like 3 or 4 series of it. So, in one of them, they go to the end of the ocean, and it is shown there very clearly that they fall into the underworld, the hell. Because that is what their book claims, the religious book claims, all of the Abrahamic. In fact, when you observe history, even those that were quite observant within their own fold, Galileo, Copernicus, and such, they were imprisoned, poisoned, and killed. Why? Because what they claimed was directly contradicting what their scripture had promised, and they would not be able to sustain their religious identity if that was challenged. So, those who are challenging, not that they intended to challenge it, but that is how their observation was. It's only in the recent century or the beginning of this recent century that they started researching and confirming it, that it is solar centric. So, the entire totality is often represented by this Surya Mandala, Surya. And in our path of worship, Surya takes a very prominent role. Every individual who has gone to Gurukula has been initiated into Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra has various Upasana Paddhatis. One of the most prominent Upasana Paddhati is of the Surya Deva, that before the Surya hits the horizon, you offer a welcoming gesture of chanting your Gayatri Mantra and offering him Arghya in welcoming as a Surya worship. Then after that is done, then you do the Yogasana Kriya, which is also called Surya Namaskar, and it has 12 steps. In a 24-day, 12 steps takes that Surya to the midpoint, from the horizon to the midpoint. From the midpoint to complete the entire cycle, it takes the rest of the 12 hours. So, for each particular phase, there is one namaskara offered. While this is true, it is also true that there are 5 confluences. 3 happen during the day, 2 happen during the night. So, we have Pratara Sandhya, Madhyanika Sandhya, Sayam Sandhya, and the rest 2 come in the night. Therefore, when we invoke the Gayatri Mantra, we also worship Gayatri Devi, who has 5 faces, representing the 5 phases of Surya. It is his glory that is worshipped as Gayatri Devi. So, Adi, Bhautika, Adi, Daivika, and finally Adhyatmika. That Surya is verily your own true nature. You are invoking that true nature through the external pointer. That is the Adhyatmika. Adi, Bhautika, Adi Daivika, and Adhyatmika. A very comprehensive understanding of that Gayatri Mantra as the Surya worship. Without that Surya, none of us can be sustained. If there is no Surya, there is no food. If there is no food, there is no life. One of the hypotheses of Einstein is, what if the earth is not rotating? A very interesting study. He says that side of earth which is facing the sun will be charred to death, and that which is facing the moon side will be frozen to death. In both cases, there is no possibility of life to be sustained. It so happens that the earth gets thawed in during the day, and the excessive thawing is cooled down during the night. At least here in this particular city, you can see that happen. That early morning it begins with a cooler breeze. By evening, late evening at least, it starts cooling down. Even in peak summer. In places like Vijayawada, I dread to go and stay there in summer, because even at night 1:30, see, if the power goes off at night, it becomes difficult. And if on the top of your roof there is no other roof, then it is like a bakery inside. Who is being baked? You are being baked live. It doesn't cool. Maybe early hours there is one cool breeze and then again heat begins. Imagine if the earth was stagnant, stationary, without that revolving around its own axis, there is no possibility of life. So, the appropriate amount of that exposure to the sun and the moon provides enough room and scope for the life to grow. All formats of life, aviation, aquatic, and that which lives on the Bhubhaga. Now, to such a Surya who is providing, who is the very central figure for our sustenance and continuity, such a Surya also is not a permanent fixture. Very clearly the mantra says, it is not a permanent fixture. Surya udeti astam yatra cha gacchati. They are not talking about the Suryodaya, Suryasta of the day. They are talking about the very creation itself. In the beginning of the creation, the sun came to be. At the end of the creation, there is the final culmination. All of this is completely withdrawn. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain this shloka if it is the early morning rise and the late evening sunset. We are not talking about that. It is from the totality standpoint that when the creation began, Surya Narayana was the first prominent that was created. Even that which is sustained for the entirety of the creation has a finality of end. Cannot continue, cannot go beyond. Now, where did this Surya begin? Where does this end? Where does this entire totality come to be and cease to be? Now, one has to understand what this totality is. Totality is nothing but the culmination of all the individuality together. That is called the totality. If wall is the totality, the bricks that are there in the wall are the individuality. The entire totality of the wall, its strength or its weakness depends on the strength and the weakness of the brick that is laid in there. Sometimes when the brick is not properly baked or not baked at all, what happens if you lay a house with that kind of a brick structure? There is the heat factor which expands and contracts, it will start crumbling. There is the monsoon effect, and if the water starts dripping over and the entire structure of that brick starts galne lagta hai and it again crumbles. So the totality is the sum of entire individuality put together. So when somebody says, why was this creation created? You have to ask the individuals. Because the totality doesn't come to be without the individual. As per the individual's desires that they entertain in their own hearts, the sum of all these desires is the totality. So to fulfill that kind of a demand, the totality comes into expression as creation. That entire totality and that forces that maintain that totality in balance, that which we call as the Devata Gana. Here Devata, Tam Devaha Sarve. Devata meaning these five elements, they are elemental. No, I am not talking about Sherlock Holmes and Watson, that whenever Watson is surprised and asks, how did you? He would say, that is elemental, Mr. Watson. Here I am talking about the very elements, therefore elemental. Everything that comes to be is nothing but the five elements alone. Some are in the subtlest form, some are in the grossest form. But it has to be the elements. The totality of these elements represented by Surya, what happens to it? It is created, and at a certain point when the creation comes to ceases to be, it is withdrawn. That unto who where it is withdrawn, that from where it is taking rise, that substratum of this entire creation, substratum of this elemental creation, tam devaha sarve arpitaha, that unto which all of these elements are withdrawn, that verily is your core of being, that substratum onto which all of this creation is created. Where is that substratum? So one might imagine that it is somewhere out there and there is the source code, and into that source code everything merges. That source is verily you, the conscious principle. Etat vaitat. Imagine the absoluteness of this statement. I identified with this body, mind and intellect, consider myself as a limited being. Limited in all sense. Ishvara is often defined as Sarvagnya, Sarvavyapi, Sarvashaktiman. Sarvagnya, all knowing. Sarvavyapi, all pervasive. And Sarvashaktiman. It's not Shakti, it is Shaktiman. That which is all powerful. Omniscient, omnipresent and omnipowerful. Right? It's the absolute. Who is that absolute? It is I, the conscious principle. The very existential reality, this conscious principle that I am that. And yet being limited, being identified with this body, mind and intellect, how miserably, pathetically that I live as a limitation. How much is the expanse that I as a body can expand? Whatever is your height. When you lie down, that is the maximum expansion that we can roll out to be. So somebody was teasing a mission member who we were seeing after almost about a hiatus of 1.5 to 2 years. Some health issue. And because of the medication, he had become like 4 times the size that we remember him. So everybody was like, pulling his leg, teasing him. Elderly person, but still a friendly, they were teasing him. And he came to me and said, Swamiji, look, everybody is teasing me. So I said, no, please don't tease him. He is trying to achieve the impossible of trying to be Sarvavyapi. Because his Vyapakatva has increased. Earlier he could walk, now he only has to roll. The point being, with the body, it is not Sarvavyapi. The Shakti of the body, mind and intellect put together is also limited. Just because you change the standpoint, you cannot claim that you are all powerful. Like this fellow went into the bazaar and said, when I was 7-year-old and now that I am 70-year-old, I have remained changeless. Everybody is shocked. I am the same powerful. They said, prove. So he took the entire bazaar to the nearest mound. Sometimes in the villages, in the outskirts, you have these precariously placed large, huge size stones. Earlier, if you had gone to that side of Gachibowli, there were only rocks with all its beauty. There were many such. So this fellow went to the biggest rock and said, at 7, I could not move this. At 70, I still cannot move this. Therefore, I am the changeless reality. Right? The changelessness is not you. It is that which you are not able to move. Our power as this body, mind and intellect is limited. Our jnana, what to talk of it? We have few degrees and in the card we put those degrees and say we am very intelligent, very, I have done my BSc, MSc route, or I have done my engineering and then again MTech and then PhD and then the titles that come along with it, all of that. Now, if you were to create a visiting card like that for Narada Muni, in Chandogya Upanishad, it is close to 3 pages of all that which he has studied. Ganita, Rasayana Shastra, you name it. Every empirical knowledge that could be studied, he has studied. And then he tells the Sanat Kumaras that having still studied it, I feel, and look at the humility of Narada Muni. He says, if the vastness of the knowledge is like the sand on the beach, the entire surface of earth, wherever there are beaches, all the sand put together is the vastness of knowledge that we have. What I have studied is merely but just a grain in comparison to the entire knowledge that can be consumed. हम एक particular, Gurudev used to put it beautifully. He used to say, what is research and specialization? What does PhD mean? Knowing more and more about less and less. And he had a very beautiful take on things. Knowing more and more about less and less. Even today when you go to Koti, there is a board which says ENT hospital. If you're going from here on the right side, as soon as you take the curve from Abids, you'll see on the right side ENT hospital. Earlier, there were ENT specialists. ear, nose, throat, all one individual. Now, there is a separate ear specialist, nose specialist, throat specialist. Probably down the lane, you have a ear problem and you go to a ear specialist, he said, no, I am only the right ear. You have a problem in the left ear, please go next door. Probably. See, there was a time where there were LMPs and RMPs, licensed medical practitioner. Am I right? RMP was a registered medical practitioner. Head to toe, they could see everything and they would give medication for everything. Like the doctor sitting here, they say, I am only for certain specific thing of anesthesia. If it is cardiac or thoracic or what do you call the neuropediatric and then the lungs specialist, उनको क्या बोलते हैं? हाँ, pulmonology. हाँ, pulmonology specialist, ER. There are so many within anesthesia. Our knowledge, that which we claim I am very knowledgeable, बड़े बड़े यूनिवर्सिटियों में पढ़ के आया हूँ, that is still limited. When Narada Muni himself says that what I have studied, what he has studied is running into 3 pages, he says it's like a grain of sand in comparison to the entire sands on the beach put together. What I have learnt is very little. Sarvajñatva, that is also limited. The entire totality of the potential unto which all these layers of matter which is projected onto it is withdrawn. That conscious reality, the existential reality, is me, the self. Meaning it is like somebody who is a royalty but is living like a beggar. Somebody who is an emperor, Samrat, and living like a beggar, begging for alms for sustenance of each meal. That is what can be compared between Jiva and his essential reality. That totality where it merges into, I am not even saying that the Jiva is the totality, maybe a representative, but you are much more than the totality, you are the very substratum of this totality, unto which the most powerful 5 elements, the most powerful Surya Bhagavan himself merges in and rises from. That Adhyatma Shikhara is Atma, me, the self. Why am I not able to see it? Purely because of my misidentification, wrong identification. This wrong identification is verily my conviction to live as limited. At the Buddhist side, I have a conviction. Papoham, papakarmoham, papatma, papasambhava, tarahimam kripaya deva, sharanagata vatsala. And Bhagavan is trying to tell us, sarvajñosi, buddhosi, nityosi. Why are you crying like a pathetic fellow? You are not a papi, you are not limited, you are not something that is to be sustained by dependence. You are the most independent entity, you are the very reality. Etat vaitat. Now once one understands this, even merely understands, not even experience it, that I am that unlimited, independent entity, all that which I am scared of in the worldliness, looking at the overwhelming presence of the entire creation surge, however big it may be, It has to finally culminate where? Into me, the self. That which is sustained by rises in and merges back into the self. Why should I be afraid of? Therefore, the scriptures call such people who are scared of the world and its worldliness as balavat or balaha, childishness. Are you ever scared of looking at your shadow? Children are. At night time, when they turn around and see their own shadow, and they ulikki padtar. We had, I had a lot of cousins, younger one, way younger than me. So one of the teasing points was we would look at their shadow and pinch that shadow, slap that shadow, and the fellow now thinks that something is being done to his extension. Oh, a shadow hai, nothing can happen to it. And nothing from it can make something in you to shatter. Similarly, this prapancha, from what standpoint? I am the very source. How can that which is sourced from me override me? When my own thought can seem to override, what about the outside? Therefore, sadhana is when I consciously function. This one thought has been repeated in this particular adhyaya so many times. One thought is constantly maintained. The interactions that I have with the outside world, where am I placed? From where am I functioning? Am I functioning as the body, mind and intellect, or am I functioning with the body, mind and intellect? I am the one who owns it, or I am the one who is becoming it to function in the world. The becoming is called bhava. And how many times do I become? Infinite number of times I become this, that, everything. Therefore, it becomes sagara. Samsara is also known as bhava sagara. And I am lost in that bhava sagara, which I have created out of wrong identity. So, where should I function from? From the conviction that I am not this body, mind and intellect, I am functioning through the body, mind and intellect. If that essential change in conviction is made, then we can take quick strides closer to the self. All this Shravana has to trigger that manana to create that conviction. Whenever I am reacting, whenever I feel suffocated with my own life, it is because of my wrong identity. Can I start recognizing that? See, in the psychiatric, medical cases, they have wrong assumptions, wrong evaluation of realities. Are we any better? They are medicated, we are not medicated. We are more dangerous than those who are medicated. They are also functioning out of wrong identity. We are also functioning from wrong identity. How good or how better are we in comparison to that? No better at all. So, this conviction change, if it has happened, then the satsanga has led to satsangatve nissangatvam. The wrong identities are being dropped one after the other, gross to the subtle. Because in essential reality, I am this existential principle. Continuing. the 10th mantra. Yadeveha tadamutra. Page 217. Yadeveha tadamutra. Yadamutra tadanviha. मृत्योस्स मृत्युमाप्नोति य इह नानेव पश्यति. It's the same kind of concept which we end our satsanga with. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. That unto which that totality merges in. That principle is verily what I am. Yada eva iha. What we are recognizing as the very self, that conscious principle, is the very principle into which that totality, amutra, the totality merges into. Wherever that totality is merging into, that alone is me. It is not any different. It seems impossible. Why? Because being the conviction as a limitation, I am trying to grasp this concept. How can I, this puny little human being that I am, how can I be that supreme into which all this merges and from where all these things express? That is only because of my wrong identity. That where the totality merges, that conscious principle is verily me. Therefore, the very astitva of the entire creation in all its visualized solid existence, even if we look at from the science standpoint, is an illusion. When you look at from the microscopic level, each one of this is made up of atoms. And each atom, about 99.9% is space emptiness. Is nothing but space emptiness. The solidness of the wood block feels very real, very solid. But at a microscopic level, it is nothing but atom which is majority only space, khalipan. And yet, when in my darkness, when the power goes away, when the electricity goes away, and my shin becomes my eye. Like when I am walking, the center table hits your below the knee. Yes, it is definitely below the belt, below the knee, and then sharp pain. And I say, this is all empty space, my foot. It hurts so bad. That which is not but appears to be. That is what we call an illusion. Yama sa maya. That which is not. See, there are two aspects to that illusion. That which is but appears not. That which appears but is not. When in the scriptural nuance, when we say that this world is unreal, they do not mean to say that what you are experiencing is unreal. Just like when you sit in front of the big screen in the theater, you see the movie. But in the deep of your own understanding, though at have you ever watched a 3D movie in the theaters, IMAX, right? When you put those glasses, blue red glasses, and watch the movie, I think the first movie that I ever watched was Chota Chetan. Ah, right? I saw it in Hindi, so Chota Chetan. It was released in all languages. The door opens, it almost feels that the door is opening right in front of your face, hitting you. The fellow offers ice cream. I was a little kid at that time. The mouth was watering. Almost go out to grab it. Though there is that spandana, there is that reaction to that which we see, but deep inside, there are people who know that this is going to be a very melodramatic, emotional overbite. People go prepared with napkins क्योंकि आज रोने वाले हैं. And why do they go knowing that it is something that you have to cry? What, your life doesn't give you enough to cry? You know that it is not going to last long. That 2 hours or 3 hours of that movie is when I know that it is not actuality, though I perceive, react and feel. Similarly is the condition of this creation. That is when the creation can be justified. And when can I reach to this standpoint? Only when I am stabilized and established as the self, as that conscious existential reality that I am. Okay, that which you already are, that principle is ever existing, is already there. That doesn't care for realization because it was never bound. The layer of matter is always jada, always inert. It also doesn't care for realization. Now, who has to realize? When the absolute doesn't care, when all that which is limitations doesn't care, who has to realize what? It is that entity which has the wrong conviction has to realize that I go through the sense of limitation as that conviction. So it is this antakarana that I am attached to, that which has to realize. It is all about, boils down to, what conviction do I carry? Just like a superiority complex is a conviction. Inferiority complex is also a conviction. Yeah, it is okay to talk in Yuva Kendra level wherein you say that you have to do this at this your personality levels, at a physical layer, at an emotional layer, at an intellectual layer. This is how you fine tune it, bring that finesse in these layers. That is when you will now have the confidence of being who you are. Therefore, find yourself stable, so that they know how to channelize the emotions and gain a control. At that age, at that level, that is necessary. But at the higher realm of the spiritual evolution, it is to understand that that which you have built, because you have built it, is not you. It is for you. The house that you have built in all its elaborateness is not you, is for you. Thereby you distinctly understand I am something separate from that which I have built. Therefore, I have to be something higher, subtler, supreme than that which I am holding on to. I don't require that stability from the outside, because the stability is actually a borrowed factor from the self within. The transcendence has to happen, the conviction has to change. This is what we mean when we say from the tamasic conviction we have to grow to the rajasic conviction, from the rajasic to the sattvic conviction, and finally even that sattvic conviction has to be dropped to become gunatita. As the guna you can never feel liberation, it is only limitation. If transcending tamasic was difficult into rajasic, and if transcending rajasic to sattvic is painful, one is difficult, one is painful. The most difficult is transcending from sattvic to beyond. Because I have seen the transformation within myself. I have been dull, I have been a victim, always feeling victimized. Now, as a Rajasic, I know I am the victimizer. There is a change, right? With that overconfidence, I end up becoming the victimizer. Then transcend to sattvic, that I am neither the victimized nor the victimizer. I have to have this value based moral, ethics, values, thereby becoming somebody who is virtuous. Even that virtuousness belongs to who? The ego. Therefore, that ego also has to be transcended. That sattvic aspect of ego, that also has to be transcended. But then in that sattvikata, the attachment is the highest. Because I have seen what misery means, I have seen what pain means, I have seen what inertness means. This seems more cushioned environment than the earlier phases. Now, why should I drop? Why should I give up? Why should I leave this? That is where a spiritual bent of mind has to be entertained along with traveling into sattvikata. Without that spirituality, that ego becomes a very dense factor, even as sattvikata. They'll start claiming, Konyosti sadrusho maya, there is nobody as great as me, as beautiful as me, as benevolent as me. Even that benevolence has to be transcended. There is a story which I did not find in the original Mahabharata, but it serves the purpose. It seems after the war, they established a very Sukha Samruddha kingdom, and Yudhishthira became the Samrat. There was a bell outside his palace, that anybody with whatever needs, they can ring the bell and Yudhishthira would appear. One day, an elderly gentleman came asking for some amenities required for doing his son's Yagnopavita Samskar. And Yudhishthira said, it is late at night, come tomorrow, I will give it. And Bhima, who witnessed all of this, started ringing the bell. And when first time after this whole kingdom was established by Yudhishthira into a peaceful environment, first time in its history that bell was rung by anybody. So Yudhishthira comes and he finds it is Bhima who is ringing. Yaar, tujhe kya hua? What is it that is bothering you? No, nothing is bothering me. I just wanted to announce to the public that my my oldest brother has won over death. He has transcended everything. Then Yudhishthira realizes what Bhima is pranking him to. Why? Because he said, come tomorrow. He now has the guarantee of tomorrow. That means he must have transcended death. You are seeing that great realized one who has transcended death. In all his humility, he dropped that and immediately found that person, gave him what was required for his. The point being made there is, even the highest righteousness that you think of, in Vyavahara that may be required. But in Adhyatma, you have to transcend even that. And basically, it is the transformation of this conviction of our own buddhi. And buddhi is the most, हिंदी में कहें बहुत पेचीदा है. Once it is convinced of something, it refuses to get reconvinced into something else. अब ये मूवी डायलॉग बन जाएगा. ఒక్కసారి కమిట్ అయితే నా మాట నేనే విన్ను. That is how the buddhi is. It is convinced of its sattvic righteousness, it doesn't drop it. That is where we require the ushering hand of the Guru to finally push us to that highest. Because that conviction is what matters. To understand that that which the totality merges in is verily here the self, all conscious, ever existing principle. That is my true nature. And if this is not understood, we are lost in the multitude and the multiplicity of this creation. Yaha nana eva pashyati. Nana doesn't mean here, in Telugu nana means, actually it is nana. Nana means in Hindi, grandfather. That who does not see their grandfather. No, that is not grandfather. Nana means nanatva, the manyness, multitude, and be lost in it. Such one is assured of going through the cycles of birth and death. Mrityum mrityu eva gacchati. He is lost in that janma marana chakra and never finds a relief to transcend that limitation. So in mrityoho samrityum apnoti, from the world of limitation, which is mrityu, they keep attaining only mrityu at every step of their way. Therefore, our message, Upanishad's message, has always been, in and through the diversity, find oneness. The vision, the conviction should be that from divisions come to oneness. What is Upanishad? That which provides the vision to transform from the manyness, the division, into oneness. And that oneness which I essentially am. Etat vaitat. This is the ultimate reality. And where is this clarity to be understood? That is taken up in all seriousness in the next mantra. We will read it but see it tomorrow. Manasaivedamaptavyam neha nanasti kinchana मृत्योः समृत्युं गच्छति य इह नानेव पश्यति. The confusion is of the conviction of the mind. Where should the realization happen? In the mind. What do we mean by it? It is a very, very subtle concept to grasp. So that we will see in its entirety tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ओम शांति शांति शांति. हरि ओम. श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः. हरि ओम.